Happy bonus episode, everybody, and welcome into the Gramlich and McLean podcast presented by Ingles, the official supermarket of Gramlich and McLean. Clemson is hiring a defensive coordinator, and so we need to talk about it. We're going to release this when the news becomes official, but by all accounts, it seems to be Tom Allen, the former head coach at Indiana and the defensive coordinator at Penn State until, a couple days ago, basically. Penn State obviously coming off a big run. So we're going to talk with Jon Blau, who covered Tom Allen at Indiana and now, of course, covers Clemson. So now Tom Allen's coming back to him, which is kind of funny. So he was awesome, Mac. Jon Blau was really good. Go follow him. He's covering the Clemson beat. He did a really good job. And he gave us some good insight on Tom Allen. I want your initial thoughts on this hire, Eric McLean.
Well, I also want to tell you this, that John was a really big piece of this recruiting pitch. Like they said, hey, you remember John from Indiana?
Yeah.
He's here now. And Tom's like, I'm in. I'm coming. Like
Sounds
this
good.
is done. It's a done deal.
Because John also said that when he left Indiana to take a job at Clemson or to cover Clemson, that's when Indiana went downhill. So obviously Jon Blau is Tom Allen's like magic weapon.
Exactly.
I think that's obvious.
So that's cool. That's cool that he was so into it. So we appreciate John and his time in all seriousness. Great stories. You guys are going to love it here in a second. But yeah, KG, it was interesting because I kind of had my hot board and I had my guys and Tom Allen wasn't on it. And, it's one of those things where at first, when I first heard it, I was just like, okay, interesting. And then I do a little more research and here's my biggest concern. I'm not quite as big of a deal right now because it's going to happen and other people deal with this, but he jumps around a lot. Like just pulling up kind of his, stations here. When you look at his first college job was in 2007. He was there 1 year, goes somewhere else for 2 years, goes to Drake for 1 year, goes to Arkansas State for 1 year, goes to Ole Miss for 2 years, goes to South Florida as the DC for 1 year, Indiana for that 5-6 year stretch, and then Penn State 1 year. That's a lot of jumping and hopping and moving. And so, is Clemson just another notch on that belt? And here it goes, 1 year, do my job. And what am I getting? What am I trying to get to? Or as you kind of, said earlier before we hit record, is this a place you can stay a while? Is this a place you can flourish and maybe grow some other way? Or are you happy doing what you do best? And that's called defenses. So that was kind of my initial deal there. I'll jump into some more X's and O's in a second. But what was yours, KG, when you kind of heard the news?
Yeah, my initial thought was, I like it. I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, first of all, if you're Clemson, to go pull the defensive coordinator off of one of the Final Four teams seems like a good thing. And it seems like, it signals that you're still a big boy in college football. And of course, we did that. We saw that with Garrett Riley too. So, and Matt Luke, bringing in Matt Luke out of retirement, which you talked about, Mac. So that to me seemed like a first sign, a good sign. Penn State's defense was really good this year. 8th nationally in scoring defense, 7th in total yards. They were electric. Like the offense, was good, but the defense was really the heart and soul of that team. And then he had really good defenses at Indiana. I remember what he did at Indiana. I remember that being a big story. I know Indiana made the playoff this year, of course, and he was let go a couple years ago, but he did a great job at that program. And then hearing more from Jon Blau about the fit, the fit is crazy. Yeah. The fact that he sees college football kind of in the same way. Obviously, he's a man of faith, which is huge for Dabo, and it feels like that's just going to be a good fit. And I think you need someone, and that's what John was saying too, like to be the head coach of the defense. That's what Clemson had in Brent Venables, and that's what made Clemson so successful on that side of the ball. You need a personality. You need someone that can take that defense and make it theirs, and galvanize and recruit and inspire, and not just not just be in charge of the schematic side, I guess. You need more of a head coach in that role, which is what Brent Venables was, Mac, right? So it's very similar to that.
I 1000% agree. And even more talking with John, but maybe leading into that, just about his fire and his passion. And that matters. It really does. For a guy to, sit there in that locker room or that meeting room or that practice or that game, and for him to be able to pull out every ounce of what you have and make you better than maybe you could be on your own, that's a big deal. And so to have a guy that, again, Coach Sweeney can literally just say, this is yours, make it
Hmm.
better. And I think you have that. And I think you have that in this that you can fully trust. I do like the aspect also that he's a linebacker coach.
Yeah.
John will talk about that here in a second. So for all those reasons, it makes a lot of sense. The fit is seamless. Now it's just about what does it look like on the field. And so, you're going to look at a 4-2-5, which Clemson has run for a handful of years now. You have some versatility in that with a couple of different positions. I think Isaiah Simmons, a little hybrid safety linebacker position that he loves to have. He also loves to have a true edge or a jack, or I think they might call it a bull, where you have that not even necessarily tweener, but a guy that's a linebacker defensive end, just that hybrid type position. Who's that going to be? Is that the new transfer from Alabama coming in and maybe fulfilling that type of role? Did Clemson already kind of know that or plan that? And maybe that's how they got, that young man, or is it the guy from Purdue? So it is going to be fascinating to see just what does this look like? What are these, new, kind of toys per se, for Coach Allen, because I do think this is going to be one of the most talented defenses he's ever been a part of when you just look at personnel and you look at skill set of who they have and who they, are going to have to slot different places. So very excited for that. Very excited to see how it shakes out, KG.
Look at Clemson, Mac, in the portal, hiring externally for
Love to see it.
coaches. I
Yeah,
mean, what is happening in
yeah,
Tigertown, Mac?
that's
It's
right.
it's a whole new world, but I think this shows that Dabo Sweeney is serious about getting this defense back to where it was. And
Right.
with how good the offense was this year, you get the defense back and you kind of pair,
Right.
especially this coming year. Like it feels like this year, 2025, is your biggest opportunity in a while if you're Clemson
Right.
to really make some noise. And you've got,
Very
like you
pivotal.
said, Mac, you said this, like the talent and the pieces on defense, especially some of the pieces you had in the portal with the Peter Woods and the TJ Parkers of
Yeah.
the world, it could be very interesting. I'm
Yeah.
excited. It's January
Yeah.
13th, and I'm excited.
Tigers are back, baby. We'll see. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hope you guys get to see this episode. But first, we got to get to Ingles. Then we're going to get to John, all his thoughts on Coach Tom Allen. Really grateful for his time. Let's do it.
Did you know that Ingles sells more organics than any other store? Or that they run their own dairy? Or that they only serve USDA choice and prime meat? Did you know that they have more local craft beer than any place else? Or that they have Energy Smart stores? Or that they professionally slice and package imported cheese from Europe? Did you know about their giant international aisle, local farm partnerships, curbside pickup, wine department? Or that they donate 3,956 meals a day to local food banks? Well, now you do. It's all in the bag. Ingles, low prices, love the savings.
John, brother, great to see you. Thank you for making time for us on this emergency podcast as we are doing this here, 7:00 at night on a Monday night. So very grateful for your time. You're a little bit unique in this situation. You have a unique perspective here with a potential DC. It might not be potential by the time we announce this and put this episode out. But just with Coach and the things that you've seen coming from Indiana, your initial thoughts when Coach was announced or will be announced as Clemson's defensive coordinator.
Yeah, it's crazy. I thought about the helmet that I have that a very well-meaning colleague gave me when I was leaving Bloomington, Indiana. He actually went to get Tom Allen to sign it and gave me this helmet. And I was like, I have to get rid of this thing because I'm covering him now and I have to be objective. So that was my first thought. Second thought is just absolutely great fit. Love each other was his slogan in Indiana, LEO. Dabo Sweeney's all about the guys loving each other, relationships, all that type of stuff. Fits that way. Brent Venables, when he left, like authoritative personality, just a presence. Nothing against Wes Goodwin, just like there was a gap there. Tom Allen has a presence about him. I mean, if you look at any of his post-game speeches from Indiana, he is an intense guy. He's a very emotional guy. There's all kinds of stories about him, like chipping teeth and cutting his face open, celebrating with players. Just like a very, very energetic person. He brings that back to Clemson, just a head coach of the defense. So it just makes sense in a lot of different ways. Linebackers coach, you don't have to move your assistants around. He fits perfectly there. So yeah, it just seems like a really, everybody, it's kind of cliche, it says home run hire, but I think that probably is the case for Dabo here.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it makes a lot of sense. And you could also say that they're very similar, right? They're on the same page in terms of kind of how they want to coach college football. It feels like with Dabo Swinney and Tom Allen. When you remember and think back to his Indiana days, obviously he had some really good teams. We know kind of slid at the end, and then of course Indiana moved on, and then had a lot of success this year making the playoff. But what is kind of some of the characteristics of defenses that you've seen that Tom Allen's coached?
Yeah, 4-2-5, so very familiar again to Clemson fans. Four down. He has a hybrid linebacker slash safety, which they call Husky. So really versatile defense. He's going to have a bunch of different fronts. He's going to have a lot of creative blitzes, and that's probably the one thing to bring up. He blitzes like crazy. He's not afraid to blitz the house.
Sounds like someone I used to know at Clemson.
Exactly. Again, just fit in terms of, Venables, very similar, very aggressive, and a lot of speed, a lot of athleticism. He would recruit Florida really heavy. Basically half or 3/4 of that defense would be guys from Florida. And they would get after you. They'd force turnovers. They make you make mistakes. They bring it to you. Absolutely going to be aggressive and pull no punches, I guess I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I know Clemson fans are excited to see that. And probably, most notably just the in-game adjustments. I mean, this guy has so much experience to pull from. He's been coaching a very long time. He's been a head coach, a very successful head coach at a place like Indiana where it's hard to win, right? We've seen, historical season this past season, but before him, I think it wasn't a 8-win season for a long time, maybe the 90s. And so when you see what he was able to do there, that matters. And he's going to be able to pull that experience and those situations that he's been in and make, adjustments accordingly, which I know Clemson fans are very excited about. There's also now another former head coach on the staff. Matt Luke, the hire last year, was a head coach at Ole Miss. He's been able to do it. So, Coach Sweeney is building this group around him that I think is very impressive and impactful, for just other decisions and not having to be the only guy in the room that's done something of that nature. John, I mentioned and referenced the relationship and the uniqueness of this situation, having covered him. Give us some fun Tom Allen bits. I mean, I've been on Twitter all day watching every video I can find, but from your perspective, any fun moments or cool things that maybe you saw from a different lens?
Yeah, I mean, I think about the Michigan game during that COVID season that they won. Devin Monster Matthews, a safety for them, came up with a huge interception. And Tom Allen just starts running down the sideline towards him, hops up. It's like a tackle, literally almost tackle into a body slam. And after the game, the post-game press conference, you see there's a giant gash on Tom's face. He absolutely broke his face open tackling this guy. So just a guy that will absolutely is physical. And this isn't a moment from back when I covered him, but I just saw a replay of an interception that Tony Rojas had I think it was during the CFP, and you could see Tom up in the box just like slamming the windows. He's just kind of like a caged animal. And so it's that one was good. After the Wisconsin game, I mean, I know that's a moment that a lot of people have seen that went kind of viral. Just like everybody coming off the field and being like, best coach in the nation, best coach in they all love him. There's one time he gave Whop Fillier, who was a wide receiver, a piggyback ride off the field, just jumped onto his back and helped him off. So that, I remember the Nebraska win they had in 2019, which they hadn't won in Nebraska in forever. So they had a lot of these wins, the Penn State win, the Michigan win, a lot of wins they hadn't had in forever. And just after the game, he just was encouraging fans, I want Memorial Stadium filled, and he was just pounding this podium, and we fought and we fought and we just absolutely just incensed, just going crazy. And so yeah, just a really emotional guy. I mean, I've seen him cry probably more than any head coach I've seen cry. I mean, when something bad happens to a player, he will get emotional about it. His own son got hurt. Michael Penix Jr., the quarterback there, who ended up at Washington, then out in the NFL. Got hurt a bunch of times. He very much has a connection to his players. He gets very, very hyped up, and you'll see it from him. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if he's on the sideline or if he's up in the box again, like caged animal. Which one it will be, because it's an interesting thing to watch.
Those are great, John. I feel like I know so much more now. Why do you think, from his perspective, led a great defense at Penn State this year. They get to the Final Four. They're 8th nationally in scoring defense. Like, they had all these different records, whatever. Why Clemson? Like, why do you think Tom Allen makes this move?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because honestly, I had him in my hot board of guys like that might be, a potential a week ago, but I ended it with, but he's been at Penn State for only a season. Would he really leave? Yeah, that's questionable. I didn't really think that would happen. That's the surprising part. Again, because he's such a relationship guy, I would think it would be hard to leave players he just built a relationship with. I think I saw some reporting that maybe his daughters are down in the Carolinas now. Thomas Allen, his son, could maybe come down as an analyst, so the family will be closer together. I think that makes sense. And again, just Dabo Swinney's program. I think that kind of the focus that they have. Obviously, Tom Allen, very devout Christian, wears that on his sleeve. I could see Dabo talking to him and just them connecting immediately. They love each other. Again, LEO, that just fits with kind of what Dabo said in terms of, or he says in terms of relationship-driven programs, isn't transactional. And yeah, just he's a football guy. A lot of these coaches, you hear him talk, Matt Luke, who came in last year, that they really look at Clemson as one of those model programs, and it's a program they would like to be a part of. So, again, family, the connection there. Matt Luke was an offensive line coach at Ole Miss when he was the linebacker special teams coach at Ole Miss. So that there are some connections. He's recruited a lot in the Southeast. It makes sense. But again, it is really quick. And I think that was the one thing that surprised me about him jumping after one season at Penn State.
John, kind of piggybacking on a couple of things that you said there, what do you think overall this says about Clemson? Just where the program is, where, a couple of years ago, you go and get the national runner-up offensive coordinator. Last year, you pull a guy out of retirement. I mean, he was literally done, and he makes an exception, one of the best to do it, to come to a place like Clemson and Matt Luke. And now you take a guy from a Final Four team that was one of the best defenses in the country. Those kind of three heavy hitters there, those hires, what does that say about where Clemson is right now nationally?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of respect for Dabo still. I mean, just the way he runs his program and how much he stick to his principles. But then it also says that Clemson's still willing to invest. I mean, I'm sure you're paying Tom Allen a lot of money. I mean, we'll see what it is, but I'm sure he's going to be one of the higher paid defensive coordinators in college football. So, I mean, Clemson's willingness to invest, the respect that's still there for Dabo. And yeah, I'm sure Tom looked at the talent at Clemson, didn't think it was that much of a drop off, or maybe about the same as Penn State. And the situation that you're in next year in 2025 with an offense that brings back what they bring back, and if you get that defense to the level you need it to be, you're in a playoff, and you could potentially compete for a national championship. So I think that respect's still there, and obviously Clemson's willing to ante up to get these big name hires at the end of the day.
Yeah, to have, just thinking back a couple years ago to what the staff looked like, and kind of the main complaint from fans is you keep hiring from within, and now you've got Garrett Riley, Matt Luke, and Tom Allen on the staff. Even though you do have to pay some buyouts, we know there's some issues there, for Tom Allen and his deal. But John, I'm curious about this with Tom Allen, because you talked about obviously at Indiana for a long time, and then at Penn State for 1 year. What do you think is the goal for him in this? Like, do you see him at Clemson for, a long time, or is he probably maybe trying to be a head coach again? Do you have a feel on that?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, because again, he's been a head coach before. He was a head coach in the high school ranks for a really long time. I mean, he didn't jump into college until his late 30s, and then kind of moved up really quick in the college ranks and was a head coach very quickly. I mean, he was the defensive coordinator at South Florida for 1 year, and then Indiana for 1 year, and then he was the head coach. And so this is a guy who likes being a head coach. And so wouldn't want to, say that he's going to end up retiring here. I don't know if it'll be a Brent Venables here for a decade type of situation, or if it will be, 2 or 3 or 4 good years, and then all of a sudden Tom Allen's a bigger name and can go get one of those bigger head coaching jobs. But it will be interesting. He's a 54-year-old guy, so he's not the youngest, but he's also not the oldest.
Right.
And maybe he is trying to jump back in. So that's a question he'll have to answer. It'll be interesting to ask him at the press conference.
That's right. I'm sure that'll be a very quick topic that he's faced with here. John, as we get you out again, very grateful for your time and your insight here just on this situation. If you could leave kind of Clemson fans with the what you need to know. I mean, this is truly what you're getting to put a bow on this whole conversation. Give us kind of, a 90-second spiel on Tom Allen.
Yeah, I would say, again, head coach of the defense, guy who really connects with his players, gets the most out of his players, motivates his guys, isn't gonna be afraid to attack. I mean, the one story I think of, it goes back to Temple Heights Christian, which was his first job in high school. And he had a running back named Nate Dorsey, and unfortunately had a dad who really wasn't a part of his life. And he thought he was going to show up to a game. Dad did not show up. He was just absolutely torn up. Tom Allen pulls him aside. He says, "Hey, look at all these guys who are here to watch you play right now. Forget about that. I need you to focus on this and let the Lord deal with your dad." And he just absolutely like turned that around, rushed for 300 yards, like had 19 tackles, played both ways. This guy. So just a guy who connects with his players, finds the right words, and motivates them and gets the best out of them. So I think that's Tom Allen in a nutshell, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Head coach of the defense. I'm all in. I'm all in. Can't wait to see it. Jon, again, grateful for your time. Thank you so much. And we'll talk to you again soon, brother.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.